Welcome to Cryptic Chronicles, a show dedicated to exploring everything interesting and mysterious in this ineffable universe we call home. On today's show, I have a special guest, Varun Gandhi. Dr. Gandhi is an entrepreneur who left everything behind to pursue his dreams, and being highly successful in that passion. He is also a YouTuber and a podcaster, and has launched several successful brands. A lot of his teachings revolve around how to sit with yourself and master your life, as well as the stories that we tell ourselves becoming a huge influence on basically everything that creates our reality around us. Dr. Gandhi says that it takes an awareness to understand this subject, and that in the modern days, awareness is kind of a superpower. So let's just get into our interview with Varun Gandhi. I'm your host, Tim Hacker, and you're listening to Cryptic Chronicles.
Now is the time to take risks.
So how did you start your business and everything? How did you get to that point where you looked inward and you came to the conclusion that a big part of our lives are the stories that we tell ourselves?
Yeah, this is a journey that began about 10 years ago. I graduated, I have a PhD in environmental engineering, went to college for about almost 10 years, just under 10 years. And once I left college, I went into the workforce, working for a consulting company in environmental engineering. And as I was, about a year into this job, I started having these pains in my solar plexus. This is, like the stomach region. And It started off as a very tiny, very subtle, slow sort of pain. And then over 3 months, it just grew into something that I couldn't ignore. Every morning I'd wake up and bam, it was right there. And at that point, I made a decision that, hey, it's time to kind of understand what this pain is telling me, because I knew it wasn't really a physical, something's a symptom for my body. It was something deeper than that, because health-wise, I was completely fine. And so at that point, I started sitting down with myself unconsciously. This was all very unconscious, very, initial phases of my diving deeper into myself. So I sat down with myself and I was asking this pain question, like, what's the message here? Why are you here? And one of the things that popped up was, it was a question, and it asked me, like, why are you going to this job? You're waking up every morning, making sure you get there 8 o'clock, 8 to 5, you put in your time, but what's the purpose? Why are you doing this? And I couldn't come up with an answer for that. It's about a couple months into it, I said, you know what, I don't really have an answer. I think there really isn't a reason for me doing this other than programming from society and people in my life telling me, like, hey, this is what you have to do. This is your path. And everyone around me following this similar path. And so that analysis, I realized, like, hey, I don't want to be doing this anymore. I feel like there's something greater out there for me. This is not it. And that's kind of what sparked, it was one of the things that sparked my journey into soulpreneurship, which is spiritual entrepreneurship. The other reason, now this is more of an inner journey, like personal reason as well. Right before I graduated, I'd gone through a rough breakup in my life. And this was a relationship that I thought, was going to be the one. I'd envisioned a family with her, living out in suburbia with 2 kids and a dog and all of that, the whole life, right? Mm-hmm. So a couple of years into our relationship, it broke apart for various reasons. And but then after like 3-4 months later, I graduated, and Idaho. I moved out to Idaho for my job.
Oh.
This was like a big transition from the East Coast to the West Coast. At that time, I didn't really know what Idaho was, or I didn't even know it existed. And so I move out there, middle of nowhere, not knowing anyone. So this kind of represented my diving into the cave, like going into that darkness. This gave me the time and space and opportunity to just be with myself and not be distracted by all the other things around me. Well, the first year, there was a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. Every morning I'd wake up, at least in the initial months, right, while I was graduating, the first three months, 4 months, I'd wake up with tears in my eyes, like, something is off about my life. I don't like this reality. I like that reality. I'd have dreams of her. And so I was in a miserable state. Well, fast forward now, moving to Idaho, I do all sorts of crazy things, everything that I could distract myself with. And it took me about 1.5 years of drowning myself in alcohol and anything I could do to drown out that pain and all of that suffering, I would do it. And so I realized 1.5 years into it that, hey, I'm killing myself. I'm really slowly just walking to my grave with all these habits, with all these things. That's when I really got serious about my inner journey. And along the same time, as I was tuning into myself, I realized the pain in my solar plexus, and the career switch happened right after that. So that's kind of how I dove deeper into my inner journey as well. And then my career, my soulpreneurship followed that. One of the things that I picked up early on as I was going through my pain and suffering in Idaho was this book called The Book of Secrets by Deepak Chopra.
Oh.
Now, this book is a very high level book, at least at that time for me. So 95% of it I didn't understand. But the little 5% that I picked up, the one thing that stuck with me was meditation.
Aha.
And that was the key that helped me unlock a lot of these little subtle shifts that have been happening in my life. But it was meditation, finding meditation and then being curious about it and making a ritual and a practice out of it. That's what helped me unlock a lot of my suffering and trauma.
So you just learned to sit with yourself.
Yeah, I'm a self-learner. I like to do things myself. So I Googled what meditation was. And there's all sorts of crap out there. Some things are true, some things are not. So I started experimenting on myself. I had just recently left my job, and I was like, you know what, I can have a lot of time flexibility. And so I created a ritual. Every morning I'd wake up and the first 5 minutes I would work on my meditation, right? This was the initial phases. So what I did was, the way it worked for me is I had rented out this one room at a friend's place, and all of my belongings were in that room. So I had to tune it all out, remove all of those distractions. So I would focus sitting in the corner of the room and paying attention to the corner where the two walls met. Everything was out of my sight. All of my belongings, all of those distractions are out of my sight. And now the only distraction that remained was my phone. So initially I would get really distracted by my phone. So then I tried to put it far away, but that still didn't work because at that point, I'd say, okay, I'm going to sit down for 5 minutes. Well, I'd sit down, close my eyes, and lo and behold, at some point I'd have this question like, has it been 5 minutes yet? And then I look at the time, it's only been 30 seconds. And so that happened quite a bit. So at that point I realized, you know what, I have to use my phone to set a timer. And so let me set the 5-minute timer on my phone. This way, one, I don't have the question in my mind, has it been 5 minutes yet? Because the alarm's going to go off. And two, I could put my phone away, put it to good use, and then put it to the side. That way I'm not constantly being distracted by it. So this kind of... Sorry?
I feel you on that. I do the same thing. I've been doing the same thing. I always have, except I use like a kitchen timer.
Yeah. The timer was the real key for me. And yeah, I was removing all of those distractions, all opportunities. And then the way it began was I closed my eyes and for a couple of different things. Either I would leave it open and imagine a dot on the wall, or draw a dot on the wall in that corner and focus on that. Then slowly I graduated to closing my eyes and imagining a flame inside of, in my imagination, or even a dot, and just focusing on that. So that's kind of how I started my meditation. And then slowly it graduated to me being able to focus on kind of what was going on in my mind, all of those thoughts and how am I feeling and all of that. But before I could even get there, it was removing all those distractions from my way and making sure that I could at least sit down, create a ritual and something that's achievable, right? I don't want to start out at 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I started out at 5 minutes and worked my way up to 15 minutes and 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah. I had to start off small too when I first began. I've been doing it for maybe 7 or 8 years now.
Nice. Same here. Yeah, it was about the same time.
Yeah, pretty much every day too. The only time I've ever really missed a meditation session is like on vacation or something,
Yeah. But I feel like, there are many different ways of meditation, right? Like one form of
That's
meditation is sitting in the floor and, in a posture and doing something. But then the other forms are like a walking meditation. So sometimes if I don't get a chance to meditate in the afternoons, I'll just go for a walk and empty my mind and, just be completely there. Enjoy the trees and everything that's going on around me. And I use that as a meditation.
That's true. That's very true.
I
There's
feel like
so many different forms.
Yeah. I'm sure you have done one of the other forms even while
Oh, yeah, I've done everything.
Yeah.
So how has stories helped to change your life, not only in meditation, but as a whole?
Yeah, so stories, my fascination with stories began as I was moving on, transitioning from my job. I picked up this book called Story or Storytelling, and it's a book by Bob McKee, and he's a really great screenplay writer. So this book was about screenplay writing, and I realized through understanding concepts of screenplay writing how real life is like real life, and they want to make it as close to real life as possible. And so I utilized some of the principles in that book to understand that, at every moment of our lives, we are trying to make sense of the situation. We're trying to make sense of people. We're trying to make sense of things that are going on around us. And this making sense of it is us in story creation mode. Mm-hmm. We're literally creating stories of the things that are going on around us. That story is valid just as much as someone else's story. Like, for example, both of us go to the same concert. You're with your group of friends. I'm with, let's say, my girlfriend, for example, and you're having an amazing time at this concert while I'm having a miserable time because I just broke up and, I'm single and now I'm, going through this horrible time phase in my life. So, we could have the same experience, but the stories that we create around it are what determine our, how we feel and how we are being during that experience. And in this sense, I realized that, hey, if I just pay attention to what's going on in my mind and how I view different situations and different people, then I can, in essence, understand what my perspective is and find ways to upgrade that perspective. Move around my stories, change my stories so that instead of looking at the scarcity point of view, I'm looking at an abundance point of view. Instead of looking at what's missing in my life, I'm looking at, hey, what can I be grateful about in my life? And so it's paying attention to, and this meditation helped me to pay attention to these subtle stories that we're constantly creating, right? At some point when I first started meditating, I didn't realize I was creating these stories. It was so fast, so quick. It would happen almost instantaneously, almost automatically. And, and I would feel angry. Like a car cut me on the highway and there was a story that, oh, he's not, giving my space. So that space belonged to me. And that would just automatically shoot off in my mind and I'd get angry and I just feel the anger and within a few seconds, and all of that, the whole process that led to the anger is completely unaware of it. So it took me a while through meditation to become aware of this story creation mechanism.
So the meditation and how you changed your own stories within yourself led to a higher awareness?
Yes, that led to a greater awareness of, how am I behaving in this world in positive ways and in negative ways? And at some point I realized, like, hey, I'm doing this and it's, I'm essentially beating myself up because of these certain thoughts that I'm having. I'm putting myself down when I get into certain situations where just by paying attention to those stories, I could really flip that and look at it in a different way. And instead of putting myself down, I can use that situation to bring myself up and empower myself to take me to the next level.
So would you say that self-awareness is kind of a superpower?
It is a superpower, it's being aware of your thoughts, and because we are, in essence, we're automatic beings.
Yeah, we're pretty mechanical.
And we've been programmed over the past 30 years of our lives, 40 years of our lives. Essentially, the first 7 to 10 years has the strongest programming. And if we're not aware of what that programming is, how we are essentially looking at life through, the lens of our parents, the lens of our society, the lens of family members around us, our friends around us. If you're not paying attention, then they, in essence, have a strong hold over us. And
it's the stories that we've been conditioned to tell ourselves as well. These stories that, like you're talking about, how you changed them so that they changed your whole life.
Right. Exactly. And, meditation and being aware of what these stories are was the first step into shifting those stories into the positive direction. Right. And there's kind of a mechanism that goes on a daily basis. And I realized this through intense meditation again, that this is how the mechanism goes, right? I'll give you an analogy. We're sitting in a movie theater and we're watching this movie on the screen. The screen is a tool that's being, that's showing us the movie. There's a projector in the back that's projecting what's on this film onto the screen. So this projector and the screen are tools. And then there's this film that's inside of this projector. So the same process goes on at every moment in our lives. There's a projector that's called the third eye chakra, our imagination.
Oh, yeah.
And this imagination is projecting all of these images and all of these stories that is contained in our film. Our film is, our past memories, our past experiences, the stories we've created around those past experiences, all of the conditioning, all of that data that we have accumulated at this point is stored in that film. So we're utilizing all of this data, all of this memory to feed our imagination with the stories, and we project these stories onto the screens in our life. The screens are, the people in our lives. They become a screen. Your like, for example, your wife, your spouse, your parent. They're all different screens in your lives. The situations that you come across in your life, the places that you visit, all of these become different screens that we are projecting our own feelings, our own thoughts onto those screens. And that's the story creation process that happens on an every moment basis.
How did this newfound awareness of stories and how it can change yourself, alter your life?
So one of the ways it altered my life was us having this conversation, me being vulnerable, authentic, being able to express myself and share my true feelings and my experiences. That maybe a year ago, 8 months ago, would have been extremely difficult for me. I would get nervous. One of the things that I observed that would happen is my conscious mind would go for a walk. It was like a cartoon where, the little animal is running away from someone and it makes that noise and it, runs away in a jiffy. That's what happens every time I get into these situations where there are people, large crowds in front of me, or being interviewed on a podcast like this. I'd get sweaty in all the wrong places, and I'd stutter and very nervous, to the point that, let's say about 10 years ago when I was going through my PhD, I realized what I was doing is, for each of those presentations, for example, in national conferences, or even my dissertation at the end, my PhD defense, I would create a script for each slide. And especially early on, I would create a script and memorize everything. And then I would go to the convention or the conference and regurgitate word for word. I would just memorize that script. This way I wouldn't have to, I wouldn't get nervous. I wouldn't have time to be nervous and then lose my voice and then not know what to say next. And so I would have to prepare to the T. But this way, I wouldn't be able to answer questions properly because I wasn't prepared for those questions. The questions at the end, the Q&A session, they're all random. And the most answer that the answer that I would give the most often would be like, "Hey, let me get back to you. That's a great question. I'll do some research and get back to you. And that's kind of what I would respond with most of the time. This was all of my stories around my nervousness and lack of confidence in myself. And so over the last about 6 to 8 months, what I've done is paying attention to my stories. I filled out my own life film, meaning this is like a history, like the film that's inside of you or the film that's inside of the projector. I was taking the time to create all of those experiences, all of those memories, the positive and the negative from my past and how they have affected me and made me into who I am today. So I went through the work of sitting down and writing all of these past memories. How did they affect me? What beliefs were created in this process? How did it change my worldview? And using affirmations, for example, I've put some affirmations right in front of me that says, express yourself. And the other one that says, be you. There's one behind me that says, yes, you can. So all of these positive affirmations around me have been constantly reminding me of my power, reminding me that I'm greater than, what my mind thinks I am.
Yeah, you've spoken at national events since then.
I have. Yes, I've spoken at national events. I've interviewed several celebrities, and it's changed my whole view of myself. And because it's changed my view of myself, I'm, a whole different person now.
That's an amazing story. Complete change, but all for the better.
All for the better. And, in this way, me being my authentic self, me being able to share these stories, me being able to share my journey, I'm able to help more people. And that's what I've realized. I would cower, I would shy away from putting myself on these stages because of that nervousness, because I wasn't able to express myself. I would, every time I'd sit down to understand what my story is, I would always get nervous and not even get to the point of understanding what that story is. I would just get stuck in that, get worried about just that nervous feeling and what's going to go wrong and what's going to go right. And I would just be stuck in that phase, and I wouldn't even move past in the sense of creating the content that I would present in these national conferences. This has been a phenomenal change for my life, and I'm able to just be more free with myself, be more open, and even have better one-on-one conversations with people.
Yeah, so you kind of stopped drifting, and you just kind of knuckled down and had a solid mission.
Yes, that's the other thing. It's the nervous energy I was just stuck in that mode, and I would just drift away in life. So whatever came my way, I would take it, but I wouldn't want to, create anything for myself. And that's that confidence, the self-confidence in myself has been able to, push me in the direction of my passion, push me in the direction of purpose. And then the other part is understanding what that purpose is, right? Because I've been lost in my life, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And this was that phase of being unaware, not really knowing myself. So self-awareness has helped me in that sense too, is what is my purpose in this, in the grand scheme of things? Because we're here to do some magical things. And I think it takes some discovering, it takes some uncovering of what that is. And it all lies deep within ourselves. And meditation and being aware has helped me do that.
Yeah, going inward is the best way to understand exterior things.
Yeah.
Do you like food? Do you not like going places? Do you like staying home and having food brought to you? Well, you're in luck, because a thing called Blue Apron exists. With multiple pricing, there's a way to get the gourmet delicious meals under any budget. And it's totally worth it. Cryptic Chronicles would not promote Blue Apron unless it knew how good it is for you. With all the junk and everything these days, the majority of people sustain themselves on poison and don't even know it. A healthy spirit, mind, and body requires a healthy lifestyle, and the ability to take care of yourself, and feed your body all the nutrients it needs to function at its best in our highly demanding lives. You get to choose your own meals. The chef-designed recipes include balanced Mediterranean delicacies, quick one-pan dinners, and top-rated customer favorites. Unpack your home-delivered box with enthusiasm because there's a guarantee on freshness and the highest quality of all Blue Apron products and ingredients. Create magic following our step-by-step instructions. You'll experience the magic of cooking recipes that the master Blue Apron chefs created with your family's tastes in mind. With step-by-step instructions, so you never miss a beat and have to get frustrated about making the meal. I know I do that. At least, when I'm not eating a delicious Blue Apron meal, that is. Responsibly sourced, quality ingredients like fresh produce, sustainable seafood and exclusive spice blends means you're going to have a meal that's top tier over the common fast food garbage most people eat. And Blue Apron cares about the environment, which is another reason I love them so much, with recyclable ice packs and packaging to ensure your ingredients stay fresh until you're home and ready and easily disposable for the health of Mother Earth. Do yourself a favor, and take care of your body and mind the way nature intended it, with a healthy meal that's also gloriously delicious. With Blue Apron, the yummy goodness is dropped off right to your very doorstep. So if you like food, and you like not going places, then why not try Blue Apron, and give your mind a rest from going to crowded grocery stores, and writing a list of stuff to get, only to forget half.
Hello, my name is Nessie. You might remember me from such places as Loch Ness, because I'm the Loch Ness Monster. Cryptic Chronicles is sponsored by Blueberry. If you're interested in making your own podcast, just go to blueberry.com, or by going to crypticchronicles.com, click on the sponsor link on the homepage. By going through Cryptic Chronicles, you will not only be helping to support the show, but you'll also have the best podcasting host on the market. There's no contracts, and you can cancel anytime. You'll have free 24-hour tech support, syndication with your own RSS feed, as well as a plethora of other goodies that only professional podcasters use. There's no third-party sites to log into. Never leave your own website. You remain in control. All you have to do is produce your podcast, write your blog post, and then publish, with 29,000 plugins to pick from. By going through Cryptic Chronicles, you'll have 1 month free of the best podcast statistics, as well as 1 month free of the best podcast hosting. So go through our sponsor, Blueberry, today. And if you can, visit Loch Ness, because I am very hungry.
So when did you quit your 9 to 5?
I quit my 9 to 5. This was 2014, so about 8-9 years ago now. And this was a big shift for me, quitting my 9 to 5 and going into, initially it was entrepreneurship. My parents were against it. People around me were against it. I had some friends who had just recently quit their 9 to 5 and move on to their passion and purpose. And they were encouraging me. So there was some light in my life, but people around me were, like, this doesn't make sense for your life. You just went through 9.5 years of college, and now you want to, leave all this behind and move in a direction that you don't even know what you're going to do. But something inside of me told me, like, hey, this is not it. There's something greater out there for you, and it's time for you to move in that direction. This was the second time I got that message, actually. First time was in between my undergrad and my grad school. I'd gone for a summer internship, a 3-month internship, sitting at a desk, crunching data, front of the computer in Excel most of the time. I realized at that point, within those 3 months, that this is not something that I'm excited about. I don't really care for this, right? And so at that point, I was already signed up to go into grad school as a master's student. So I said, you know what? Instead of just doing my master's, I'm going to stay in school longer, get my PhD, and kick the can down the road and make a decision later. Well, I graduated and go back into that same job that I hated, and finally I realized my lesson, that this is not it for me. So it took me multiple tries, but the great thing is that I'm here now. understanding, having a better sense of what my purpose is and what.
Yeah, and you're way happier now.
A whole lot happier.
Like those friends of yours that were saying that you shouldn't do all that or whatever, they're still acting mechanical. They don't have the inner knowledge or the self-awareness or just the understanding. They're still just stuck in the way that they've been trained and conditioned to act.
Right. Yes. And it takes that awareness to move out of that conditioning, to understand
It also
what
takes
that
a lot of courage not to listen to them.
Yeah, it did. Yes, it did. It did take a lot of courage. And especially because I was really close with my parents, and my dad was completely against it. He had, this is when I was, actually before I was born, he was working, and then he wanted to try out entrepreneurship. So for a couple of years, he had started up a business, and it failed miserably. He lost a lot of money. And so when I was born, he finally found a stable 9-to-5 job that was able to put us food on our table and pay our rent. And so because he had that adverse experience with entrepreneurship, he was pushing me against it as well, thinking that I want to protect my child and make sure that he's going in the direction that he's supposed to go in, which is that 9-to-5 job. That's the stability. That I didn't agree with that, and I still did what I wanted to do anyways. So I'm glad I took that decision.
As an entrepreneur, you have to get good at failing before you ever start to fail up.
Yes, that's such an important lesson that I had to learn. Yeah, at that point, I'd basically winning in life, graduating and getting this job and having stable income, and my whole life was set because, hey, I have living the American dream, but I still wasn't happy. And that unhappiness created this whole movement towards entrepreneurship. And that's when I started realizing, the importance of failing and, going through those experiences and learning from them.
Yeah, there's no better teacher than failure.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about your entrepreneurship? What exactly do you do with all that?
Yeah, it's been a journey in that as well. I let things come naturally to me. So the way it started is I was deep in my meditation and going deeper every day. At one point I was meditating like a 9-to-5 job. I'd have a morning session, 9 to 12, take a break, come back to it in the afternoon. So that whole time period led me to my current business partner, the chakra doctor. And he had, at that point when we first started, he had created this guided meditation called the full chakra activation. And so we met up, he guided me through this. I felt amazing. I'm like, there's something here. Let's take it to people. And this could be like a new form of yoga. So our goal was to create as many events and take this meditation to the people. And we were able to put together events of 100, 200, 300 people meditating together for an hour.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was such a fabulous time. We had a great space, and it started off there. And then through the pandemic hit. Right before the pandemic hit, we had put together a spiritual festival called Spiritual Block Party. And this was in southern LA, South LA. We had 1,500 people come throughout the day, and it was such an amazing festival with 10 different sessions, like yoga sessions and meditation and breathings, and it's all across the board. And we had our full chakra activation featured there as well. So that was an amazing event. And then 3 weeks later, pandemic hit, everything shut down. And going into that, we were experimenting with a couple of physical cleanses. We had self-created these cleanses, and we were trying them on ourselves. So when the pandemic hit, we said, we have this product. Let's take it out to the market and, work with people on an individual basis. So then we started taking some clients who had some health issues, who were going through something at that time, some sort of disease, and we put them through a miracle food cleanse. It's a 15-day cleanse, and we had seen amazing results. People were, removing inflammation, cleansing their bodies, and it was a phenomenal result. And this was towards the end of 2020. So 2021, we went to market with that product. We bottled it, produce it, mass produce it, and we took it out to the market. So it's a 15-day intracellular cleanse, or it's a combination of 4 different superfoods. And from then on, seeing the journey of that product, we have created several different products, all physical cleanses. Along with that, we have affirmations played a huge role in my life. So I've created several posters, like affirmation posters, like reminders for certain key phrases, like yes you can, and express yourself. So these are certain products that I've created. So the affirmations, so there's a physical cleanse, there's a mental cleanse, and then the spiritual cleanse is the full chakra activation, going through the guided meditation and feeling like activating your chakras, but then feeling amazing after it. So that's the holistic view of what we have created thus far.
Is a lot of your stuff vegan?
All of it's vegan, plant-based. I'm 100% plant-based, and I've been for the last about 4 or 5 years now. It's even that shift of going from eating dairy. I've always been vegetarian. So when I realized the harmful effects of dairy on my body, how it made me feel, I didn't want that. I didn't want that for myself anymore. So it took me some time. Some people are able to go cold turkey, remove dairy from their life completely. For me, it was taking my time with it. And I took one aspect of dairy, like milk, yogurt, cheese, one thing at a time, and removed it from my diet, from my system. And so over about 6 months or so, I was able to completely convert to plant-based. And that transition helped me, ease into it. And this way it was more sustainable for myself. I realized now I could do it long term by finding direct substitutes for the things that I like. And so that journey helped me reduce about 20 to 30 pounds of inflammation, mucus that was stuck in my body. My fingers felt fat. And when I made this transition about a year into it, my fingers now felt skinny. All of that inflammation, all that extra weight that I was carrying was all removed from my system.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I feel fresher, so much more energy, and I'm able to create a whole lot more goodness in this world.
I'm mostly a vegetarian. I eat meat if I know that the animal was treated respectfully. But I don't, even if I tried to go full on healthy like you, I don't think I could ever give up nachos.
There are good substitutes for cheese now. You would be able to have your fill and enjoy it as well. Yeah, I've been able to find good substitutes. So I'll give you an example. Yogurt has been something that I've always grown up with. Every meal growing up. So I grew up in Dubai, and we essentially had an Indian food diet. So every meal we'd have yogurt. And it was such a staple for me, and I had such fond memories of yogurt that I wouldn't be able to give it up. So when I found Kite Hill yogurt, it was just as creamy. It had, the lack of a flavor. I like that. I don't like vanilla yogurt, for example, right? I like it where it's the original flavor and it doesn't have any sort of additional taste to it. Like some other yogurts have a different taste to it. So it took me a while to get used to it. But the one that I found was like perfect in all the foods that I enjoy. And when I found that substitute, I'm like, okay, now I can make the change and move on to being completely plant-based. The yogurt was the last thing that I gave up because I had such a strong bond with it. But, I feel like with every dairy product, with every meat product out there, there is an equivalent substitute. I think it just takes, like beer, it takes a little bit of like an acquiring that taste.
Yeah, absolutely. There always is something. It just takes a bit to get used to it.
Yeah, and then what helped me is watching documentaries, that talk about the health effects, the health benefits of going plant-based. Watching documentaries about, I'm sure because you're already, looking at how the animals were treated, but the cruelty behind these animals and behind all the process. Yeah. So watching those documentaries also helped me make that shift. Although I didn't get to the point of watching the animal cruelty documentaries because I'd heard about it. And I'm like, I can already imagine. I don't need to watch
gross,
it.
Man. And like, if you absorb that, I'm not trying to get too metaphysical, but you absorb that like negative energy into yourself when you eat it.
Yeah. And the way I look at it is animals, at least the animals that are being eaten, they're getting their energy sources from plants.
Hmm.
So what we're eating, the meat that we're eating, is essentially plant matter that's recycled. So why not just get the content from the plant matter directly?
What was one of the things that made you decide to go so healthy, despite other than spiritual reasons? Is it because there's just so much poison in our lives?
There is a lot of poison in our lives. The more processed foods that we eat, the more chances of this being, this poison getting into our systems. And you say I'm eating healthy. I don't know if I'm eating 100% healthy because I still eat French
Better
fries,
than
which
most.
is vegan. But yes, it is better than most. Yes,
99% of people.
I agree with that. Although it's not always healthy, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like I can still enjoy those foods, still eating French fries. I'm like, hey, I can enjoy this every now and then.
Moderation. It's all
Moderation. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of the major thing that helped me was me paying attention to my body and understanding how all of these foods are affecting my system, right? There are certain foods that I felt were reducing the energy inside of me, were making me feel bloated, making me feel sleepy. And that dairy did that. Making me feel gassy, dairy did that. I have these pains in my stomach, dairy did that. And when I removed dairy from my system, suddenly all of those pains and all of those things kind of dropped. I mean, it was still there because of wheat and other things, so it took me a while to remove all of that from my system as well. But yeah, I was literally paying attention to my body during the meal, a couple hours, few hours after the meal, the night of the meal, then following morning. How long does it stay in my system? Is it come out in the morning? Does it take half day to come out? Does it take a full day to come out? Because all of that, I look at it as if it's like, a computer, and it has all of this apps that are open in the background, and it's just sucking energy out of your system. That's what all of this additional material in our body does. It's there in our system, and our bodies are trying to digest it, are trying to remove it from our system, but it's not being able to do anything. So it's just sitting there and accumulating and taking or sucking out energy that could be potentially used on creating something beautiful for this world.
Yeah, but what about dehydration on top of that?
Ooh, dehydration. Now, don't get me started on water. One of the titles that I have is a water doctor, and the reason initially I had this PhD in water engineering.
Oh wow!
So that was part of the water doctor. But then now what I'm doing is I'm reminding people to drink enough water. Right? Our bodies. I kind of get this. I read this book called "Your Body's Cries for Water." Your body's many cries for water, and in the book, it's something written in the 90s. By this doctor in Iran. So his story is that he was thrown in jail in the late 80s during the revolution. And while he was there in jail, he was observing the prisoners. He saw a lot of prisoners they had lack of energy, they had pains, and they were basically like sitting in a corner and literally to the point of dying. And what he realized is, by just feeding them water, within 3 hours, 3 to 6 hours, a lot of them were cured. And he found there was something magical with feeding people water. So he realized that a lot of these people are going through these diseases, but it was because of a lack of water. And just by drinking enough water, you're able to remove a lot of the diseases in our lives.
So you're saying that dehydration is the root cause of many diseases?
Yes, dehydration is the root cause of a lot of the diseases, at least a common disease. I'm not talking about cancer in the advanced phases, but at least a common, like headaches and migraines and ulcers and colitis and all these little things that go on in our lives. If you drink enough water, most of them will be taken care of.
But it's all these little things that build up to become a big issue.
Exactly. And they linger, they remain, and over time, over years of these pains just staying in your systems, us not drinking enough water during that time is just adding on top to it, and it leads to something much bigger in our life. So starting early, And, it's like a daily maintenance. You just have to do it every day. Maybe one day you drink less and that's okay, but make up for it drink a little bit more the next day. Because you've seen plants, when you don't give them enough water, they're going to wilt and die. And the same thing's going to happen to us. We're going to wilt and die from the inside.
Oh, yeah.
Hi there, thanks for listening to Cryptic Chronicles. The show is sponsored by Blueberry, and if you're interested in starting your own podcast, use our link. We'll even give your podcast a shout out. Go to crypticchroniclespodcast.com and click on the Blueberry link on the homepage. By doing so, you'll be helping the show. Blueberry is optimized for iTunes as well as all podcast hubs. You won't have to worry about expensive contracts or fees. In fact, you won't have to leave your own website. You'll have your own RSS feed and no third-party sites. Try it for a month free by going through Cryptic Chronicles. Also, if you're a fan of cryptic content, please support the show on Patreon. By giving just $1 a month, you can really assist us in posting more content frequently. You'll also have access to bonus ad-free episodes of the show and the Discord channel. To keep up with all Cryptic Chronicles content, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and of course Facebook. Give the Facebook page a like and join the Cryptic Chronicles group. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for supporting the show, but most of all, thanks for listening.
Hello, dear listener. Have you ever had a paranormal experience? A spiritual or esoteric experience? Have you ever seen a UFO or something that you could not explain? Have you ever witnessed anomalous activity that defies reality? Have you ever experienced unexplained mysteries of existence? If you have your own cryptic tale and would like to have it shared on the podcast, then call 1-800-757-6049 and leave a message of your experience. If it's what Cryptic Chronicles is all about, then it will be shared on the show. Just make sure you thought about what you will say ahead of time, and give a clear and concise account. Also make sure to leave your name, where you're from, or any information that will assist in making a clear picture to portray to listeners of Cryptic Chronicles. Once again, call 1-800-757-6049. That's 1-800-757-6049. We look forward to hearing from you.
So, since stories help change your life, and these stories helped your physical health as well, but how do stories improve your mental health?
Yeah, so stories. So Deepak Chopra has this one quote that I really like, and it says, "The best use of imagination is creativity. The worst use of imagination is anxiety." What he's saying is that our anxiety is created in our imagination, meaning it's not really out there. It's our thoughts that create our anxiety. So by paying attention, basically our thoughts, which is our stories, so our stories are creating anxiety. So we have anxious stories being played in our mind. And this anxiety that lingers over time becomes into something bigger, and it turns into depression. And then that over time will turn into some sort of mental health disability and some sort of disorder. And it just escalates over time. And I feel like by paying attention to what stories you're creating and understanding how these stories are affecting us on a daily basis, what we think about certain situations, that will determine how we feel. That will determine how we feel not just now, but over a long term, because these things are programmed inside of us. These stories are programmed inside of us. So we are recreating, by the stories we're telling, how we feel on a daily basis. And just by shifting what stories we're creating, we can start moving in the direction that we really want to go in, which is happiness. everyone, every individual, not even human being, but every being on this planet is just looking to be happy, looking to exist in a state of happiness. And if by paying attention to what stories we're creating, we can start walking in that direction.
Yeah, that could change our lives because it's like a vicious circle. When you start telling yourself bad stories, it not only affects your mental health, but that negativity can affect your body as well.
Yeah, and all of these mental effects also have a physical effect on our body. As you know, it's energy, and some sort of spiritual defect will have a mental defect, will have an emotional defect, will have a physical defect, and it'll trickle down all the way to some physical pain in our body. So by looking at the root cause of that physical pain, we can tackle not only that pain, but even go down to the spiritual realm and work on what that conditioning is, what that thought process is that's causing us to have that pain and have that disease.
Yeah, totally. Dr. Gandhi, can you tell me about soulpreneurship?
Yeah, soulpreneurship is a term that I used initially when I was in this phase of helping soulpreneurs promote and market their product, their service. There are a lot of great entrepreneurs out there, soulpreneurs out there who have amazing body of work, an amazing meditation, an amazing form of healing. And I wanted to help them bring it out into this world. So I was doing marketing for soulpreneurs, and I put myself out there as that. And essentially, I view soulpreneurship as this combination of spirit work with entrepreneurship. And so any Reiki practitioner, yoga practitioner offering their services is a soulpreneur, essentially. Someone working on the soul and helping not just one person, but providing a service that can help benefit all of humankind. I feel like that's the true essence of a soulpreneur, and everyone has it inside of us. Everyone is seeking healing, and once we're healed, now it's upon us to pass it on to other people as well.
So is it like a form of mixing a spiritual practice with business, basically?
Yeah, it's a spiritual practice, and in a sense, business. You're providing a service to people that can heal them.
Yeah, and you've done a lot, huh?
I've been working at it. That's it's like a daily work. You just keep at it every day.
During the pandemic, how many people did you help? Let me check.
So that project, we have continued all the way thus far.
2,000? Every Sunday, you feed about, wait, did I read that right? Yeah.
Yeah, every Sunday we've fed 1,500 to 2,000 people in the LA area.
That's pretty amazing.
And that's another project that came to us early on in the pandemic. I got a call from a friend of mine, and he said that, hey, there are a lot of people suffering. What can we do? And so him and I brainstormed, and we came up with this idea of people have lost their jobs. They don't have their only source of income, meaning they're not able to provide food for their family. So how can we help them? And so we put together these grocery bags of supplies initially. Eventually, we moved on to also providing hot meals. So the hot meals portion, we have continued all the way until this day, and all the way until the end of 2022 at least. We have decided and committed to it, where we're going to provide 1,500 to 2,000 meals to the LA community. So thus far, we have done about 185,000 meals.
That's awesome. You've done a lot of good. And it's all vegan meals, right?
They're all vegetarian. There's some things occasionally may have, like, pasta sauce may have some cheese in it built in, but we don't add anything else to it. So 75% of our meals are vegan. 3 out of 4 items on the menu are vegan. The one thing is pesto sauce, and it has a little bit of cheese in it.
I actually have been working and helping homeless communities for years. So I particularly really appreciate that.
I really appreciate organizations that are doing the work of, on the street helping people. What we realize is that there's so many of these people. There's so many people who are on the street wanting to provide this service to people. But what they're What they lack is that they also have to provide the meals. They also have to make the meals and then go out there and feed people. And we wanted to take that off of people. We said, you know what, we can provide you the meals. There are already all of these 20, 30, 40, 50 different organizations that do the work. Why not us provide the meals to them? And then they have a much easier hand at just, delivering the meals into the community, which is what they love doing anyways. And that's how we have been able to sustain ourselves and, be able to continue this project all the way through, because you've seen the good that it's done in the community. And, as you know, there's so many hungry people out there. I mean, LA has thousands and thousands of people on the street.
Oh yeah, it's really bad there.
Yeah. And what we're doing is just a drop in the bucket, but we're doing what we can.
It's all you can do. Like when it's raining, you see a worm crawling across the cement. You can save that one worm. You can't save them all.
Right. Exactly. So
every little bit counts, though.
It does.
It's
oh man, it's such a great project because it's like it's all volunteer based. We're not gaining anything out of it. There's $1.50 cost for the meals to all the supplies and everything. But every time we've gotten out into the community, like, hey, we need some sort of resource, we need some sort of help, we need more volunteers, we always seem to find them. There are always people ready to help us, whether that's in terms of funding, in terms of finding the resources, in terms of finding pots and pans that, because we cook in bulk, so we need large pots and large pans.
Oh, yeah.
And we're able to get that from the community as well. So it's been very magical to see all of this unfolding.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating just how many people are not only willing to help, but actually eager to help.
Yes. And it's on a weekly basis. Like every week we need 25 to 30 volunteers to make this happen, and they all show up.
And that's the power of storytelling, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, sharing these stories and, putting it out there that, hey, there are people suffering and let's do our part.
Yeah, all it takes is a little bit from everybody.
Yes, yeah.
So what do you have going on with your life right now? Not only in like the entrepreneur type stuff, but just as a general overarching view. What's going on with you in your life?
Well, my wife and I are about to welcome our first kid.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. That's going to be in about 6 weeks or so. It's very close. And that's going to be a lot of our life right now is being new parents and learning what that means and how to, take care of a little one.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Other than that, I'm going to be working on this, the feeding people. So every Sunday morning I'll be there. If there are people listening to the show and they want to help out, feel free to reach out to me. I can point you in the right direction. If you're in the LA area, you're looking to volunteer for 3-4 hours on a Sunday morning, please reach out to me. We always need more volunteers.
How might one of the listeners contact you?
The two ways. Instagram is a great way, and you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Varun Gandhi. If you type that in, that should show up. Or my website, which is drvarungandhi.com, and you can reach out to me on either form, and I'll be happy to get in touch with you.
You're also on YouTube, right?
Yes, I'm also on YouTube. I have a little show that I do where I interview people and get to understand what their stories are. The show is called What's Your Story, and that's on YouTube. So if you search What's Your Story, Dr. Varun Gandhi, that'll show up.
Excellent. So there you go. There's tons of ways to hit him up if you want to help out.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this interview.
Yeah, we're coming to a close, and I would just like to say that it was an honor to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Love and abundance, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Varun Gandhi, and I hope to have you on again sometime.
Yeah, I would love for that. I'm constantly learning lessons, and I love to share more.
Yeah, we should probably do back and forth on more spiritual aspects sometime and go a little bit more in depth. Maybe talk about the shadow and stuff.
Yes, let's do it. I'm up for it.
All right. Well, until next time, sir.
Thank you, Tim. You have a fantastic day.
You too.
Love and abundance.
That's all for today's episode. A link to all of Dr. Gandhi's stuff will be in the show notes. Definitely go check out his YouTube channel. Definitely go support his work with the homeless in any way you can, if you can. Times are tough. And wow, what an interesting guy, right? Hopefully we'll see him later on another episode. Maybe we can get like a little bit more esoteric or metaphysical, a little bit more. I asked him I wanted to talk about the shadow, so that would be cool. Anyway, Cryptic Chronicles is available on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and all podcast hubs. You look for us somewhere there. If you can, listener, please make sure to like, comment, or review wherever you hear this content. The interaction makes algorithms like the episode and will so spread it and suggest it to people basically across all platforms, and it will really just help me out a lot. Though the show is free to listen to, the cost and time to produce it is substantial. By pleasing the gods of the algorithm, you are doing more than your part in support. And if you really, really like Cryptic Chronicles and you happen to be awesome, then support the show on Patreon. For just $1, you can unlock full uncensored shows with no ads or anything like that. Be able to listen to episodes months before it's available to the public. Though that's mostly just my solo episodes, not the guest episodes or the interviews or anything like that. There's also only a handful of exclusive episodes you can find in there, including one where I'm interviewed. And depending on the pledge, you can get a bunch of other cool stuff as well, but you'll definitely be able to choose a topic of a video or a podcast episode. And don't forget to join the Discord channel where we can steer the topics of future shows and kind of guide the ship on where Cryptic Chronicles is headed. Just go to crypticchronicles.com and at the top, click on the Chronicler's Vault. It's a link to Patreon, so you'll be good to go. And as always, I'd like to thank my current patrons, MJ Calvo, Adrian, John, Celestial Weavers, Alien X, Lorna Grubb, Linda Gonzalez, Angela Delaire, Ashley, Brad Herbert, Lawrence Lee, Patricia Coles, Kayla, Max, Michael Worrell, Jimmy Woods, Brodius, Sophia Owens, Scott Wellman, Beware the Q, Ashley Thompson, Matt Poland, Johnny Wick, and our newest patron, correct me if I say this wrong, D. Yale Adams. Thank you so much for supporting the show, but most of all, thanks for listening. And as one of the greatest painters who ever lived once said, if you hear a voice within you say, you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced.